The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, no, it's not my intention to do so.
Question number 3, the Leader of the Opposition, David Shearer.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements and have confidence in the statements of his ministers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Let me start by wishing the Leader of the Opposition a Merry Christmas. And yes, I stand by all my statements. I have confidence in all my ministers, and whilst it may have been the case that ministers in a previous government had to run their statements past their Prime Minister, I do not run such an autocratic government. I can only have confidence in those statements I've specifically seen or heard.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and returning the compliments to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement that
I
quote,
want to hear the question.
That quote, yep, in the end, you know, we need to get that unemployment rate down, and that's whatever we think of the merits or robustness of the number, we need to be printing a lower number. And when will he be printing a lower number?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Reasonably confident before the next election.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Does he stand by his statement that this year has been much more business as usual, and is an additional 19,000 people unemployed over the last year business as usual?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
So the first bit, yes.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Does he stand by his answer in response to Labor's claims of increased migration to Australia? That quote, yep, they've got a point. But I mean, it's a fine kind of conundrum in a way, because we started that argument, so I'm not arguing the merits. And how does he reconcile this answer with his statement that this year has been much more about business as usual?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I was simply making the point that a strong Australia has some real merits for New Zealand. They are the largest source of tourists to New Zealand, largest source of our exports, largest source of foreign investment. So a very weak Australia doesn't actually help New Zealand. But yes, I stand by the view that we want New Zealanders to stay here if they can.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Does he agree with his Finance Minister that, quote, child poverty rates fell in working families from 16% to 8% from 2004 to 2007, the period in which Working for Families was rolled out? And how many children has his tax cuts helped out of poverty, given that hardship rates for children have risen from 16% to 21% in the last 4 years?
The Right Honourable
Mr.
Prime
Speaker,
Minister.
I simply can't verify the facts of the last bit, because we know that they are typically unreliable when they come from Labor. If we look at the first, yes, it's true that Working for Families had a benefit in assisting children in poverty. That's true. It's also true that when Labor had 3 years, 2005, 2006 and 2007, where the combined surpluses were $20 billion, there were still 240,000 children in New Zealand in poverty. The simple bottom line was they didn't care enough to do much about it.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given that over the last year there has been an additional 19,000 unemployed, a record 54,000 people leaving for Australia, inequality rising to the highest level ever, the rate of children living in hardship risen by 40% since 2007, does he stand by his statement that the low point for him was his inability to sell New Zealand's assets?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, yes, it was one of the low points. There were a couple of others, but that was one of them. And the good news is we comprehensively won that court case yesterday.
Question number 4, Nikki Wagner.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order. I want to bell. Order.